Hello, Professor Lycan. How are you today?
Good morning. Good morning. I am somewhere between stupendous and phenomenal. Haven't quite decided. There might be a area in there, but
Oh, that's the best ever.
how are you?
I am not doing too bad, but I would have been doing better if I hadn't just hit stop recording and then start again. But here we go again. It's the bug's fault, okay? Okay, so how did we meet?
If I recall correctly, it was like what, 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago, but
Yeah.
through Twitch. We were
Yes.
both Twitch streamers. I think technically Demon was the mutual.
Yes.
Yeah, because you and Demon were more daytime streamers, and I think at the time I was starting to do a little bit of daytime streaming. Demon raided into you at least once or twice a week
Yeah.
at that point. And when I started to hear what, because there's a lot of fucking streamers out there,
Yeah.
and it just occurred to me, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear on here.
No, you can talk your usual, just keep it clean.
I will do my best. I never swear in aggression. But I was just super pleased compared to other streamers with the nature, with the person that you were expressing
Oh, really?
versus a lot of other streamers don't, they express whatever people want to hear,
Yeah.
and you just did you.
Yes.
And I was just talking to Demon about this. Actually, I've talked to a lot of streamers about this recently. The only way to become a truly successful streamer, and by success I mean making a living off of streaming,
Yes.
right? I was at one point in my life I was pulling 400 or 500 a month.
Oh,
That's kind of
nice.
successful, right?
Yeah.
But not making a living,
No.
because that's $500 a month for what, 80 hours of streaming a week,
Yeah.
you know? So, no, not 80, 40 hours a week. 40 hours a week, because at my peak, I was streaming 14 times a week, and that's
Holy cow.
if I was able to keep that pace up for another month. I only did that for 1 month because I quit my job, and I was like, okay, let's dive into streaming full time, create a schedule, stream in the AM, stream in the PM. So it'd be a 4 hour stream in the AM, then a break, and then a 4 hour stream in the PM. I made it into a career.
Yeah.
And in that single month, I gained 100 new followers, went from 600 to 700 new followers. And if I'd kept that pace up, I imagine the next month I would have gotten 200 new followers, then 400 new followers, right? Because it's exponential. And but then I got a new job because $500 a month doesn't make a living.
No.
So but anyhow, I remember that most streamers, I give me a bad taste in my mouth because I'm like a radar for dishonesty, disingenuous, that's the word, disingenuous behavior. And
Same.
I feel like most streamers just do whatever the audience wants them to do.
Yeah.
And so I was very pleased with that, and I was like, okay, and I started to chit chat and everything, and then we did the group stream.
Oh, that was
We
so much
played
fun.
some GTA. Yeah, it was a lot of fun. I got a little frustrated because I felt like my character ideas weren't fitting into the niche, but I think it had more to do with that game than anything. I
Probably.
thought I could be like a non-criminal criminal in
Yeah,
the
I
game.
did too. And then I was
Yeah,
trying to be
but you can't.
Christian, but being a criminal. It's like,
Yeah, you can't. There's just too many crimes in GTA. That's like the theme of the game, so
yeah.
it's hard to. But yeah, that's how we met. That's 14 hours long, 14 hours later description of how we met.
That was a great description and you made me smile. So please tell me a little bit about yourself and the journey of where you are today.
So, I am turning 40 this year. How do I describe myself even? This is probably the one thing that makes it difficult to do interviews, is describing yourself.
I know.
I am exact human male average. I am average hair color, average eye color. Well, no, my eye color is a little bit unique. Average height, average hair color, um, you know, basic gamer slash athlete, well-rounded person. I like to think I'm well-rounded.
Yeah.
Okay. And by that I mean one of my absolute favorite tasks to do is chop wood.
Really?
But at the same time, I can sit on, like, just this past week I spent 14 hours in this chair playing V Rising. Right? Like Like, I'm an outdoorsy guy. I've climbed a 14er. I've done when I was young, 18 years old. I did I think it was like a 500-mile canoe trip and portage in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan. That was quite an adventure. I met a moose. I got stuck in mud up to my chest. It was crazy, and I loved every minute of it. But then at the same time, like, I will binge watch the Godzilla Monarch series and watch the entire series in one day. Like,
Yeah.
so I like to think I'm well rounded, but maybe I'm not actually. Maybe I'm like a dichotomy. Like, I am both extremes.
Yeah. Same here.
Maybe possibly. But as far as how I got to where I am today, we'll get more into it throughout the podcast, I'm sure. But um, I'm the child of a Mormon mother. I should clarify that is Latter-day Saint. For any of you who are familiar with Mormons, Mormon history at all,
Mhm.
um, Latter-day Saint is the massive church that is probably the wealthiest in the world. And then it's a sect of Mormonism because back when Brigham Young passed the torch to Joseph Smith. No, reverse. Joseph Smith handed the torch to Brigham Young. Joseph Smith's son created his own sect, and that's where you get the polygamy Mormon that exists today. That isn't wealthy and flourishing. So my mom was not like dedicated to the church,
Mhm.
but went to church every Sunday. Right? She still drank caffeine. She swore, but those are two things. The church doesn't believe in swearing. It doesn't drink caffeine, and my mom still did those things. But she went to church every Sunday.
Yeah.
My dad, I don't know. Still to this day, I don't know my dad's spiritual beliefs at all, because his mom, he was 16 when his parents got divorced, and his mom then proceeded to church hop. She went to some 15, 16 different churches
Mhm.
in the following 20 years. So even into my childhood, I was born 5 years. Let's see. My dad was 20 when I was born. So if he was 16, so that's 4 years later, I was born. I was probably 3 years old the first time I went to one of my grandmother's churches. I don't even know the names of all the different churches. But I myself, if I spent a weekend with my grandma, went to whatever random church she was in. So I think my dad is actually borderline atheist because he didn't like going to church. He would encourage my mom and he would encourage us to go.
Mhm.
But at age 4 or 5, basically as soon as I was old enough to rake up grass clippings, my dad stopped letting us go to church, and instead he would every Sunday morning at like 7 in the morning, he would wake us up and we would drive into downtown Detroit, and we would do the yard work for my then great grandmother, who was 84,
Mhm.
85, something like that. Because she obviously can't do her yard work, right?
Yeah. Really.
And I remember it so clearly because I had a little red radio flyer, and I would fill that with grass clippings. And my great grandmother's lawnmower was one of those like 16 blades on a wheel.
Oh.
Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the
Yeah.
old lawnmowers, it's
Yeah.
just a wheel of death,
Yeah.
you know? And so I stopped going to church at that point. And we did that every single Sunday. And then it wasn't until I was 13 years old. I still to this day am unsure what inspired this, but I asked my mom about church.
Mhm.
And my mom, her whole body, when people get an idea, a light bulb appears above their head.
Yeah.
You've seen this, right? This is a real life thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they get an idea and an actual light bulb like appears above their head. Like that's reality.
Yeah.
My mom's whole body lit up like a light bulb.
Oh wow.
And so she called the missionaries, and she got what she calls a visiting creature involved. Mormons have a visiting teacher,
Mhm.
is a woman who goes to your house and checks in with the family every now and then, because they're very community based, right?
Yeah.
They want to make sure everyone has the opportunities to be heard and to be cared for and to get help if they need. And so they have home teachers and visiting teachers. Home teachers are the men, visiting teachers are the women. They go separate of each other. It's two separate appointments, and they literally just go to check in on the family. But my mom got them involved. Next thing you know, my brothers were pulled into it. All three of us got baptized when I was 13. So it was like a 6-month process
Yeah.
between when I asked and when I got baptized in my mom's church. And then I only went to church for 3 years.
Why
3
just
years?
3?
Wait, no, more than that. Because I'm going to use the word defected because I can't think of a more appropriate term at this time. At age 18. So I think 5 years then. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. 6 years almost. Almost 6 years. Because I like turned 14 shortly after getting baptized.
Yeah.
But um then a lot of stuff happened.
So
Uh
what go ahead.
well, so I was drafted into the church,
Mhm.
or drafted into the choir at the church, right? We'll start with that because it was a lot of fun. There's a lot about the church that was enjoyable
Yeah.
and fun and pleasant. And the choir, for example, I remember very clearly one day I was standing in the hallway of the church, and this very massive hand, like, felt like maybe a 7'8", 300-pound man, grabbed me by the shoulder, lifted up my entire body, and next thing you know, I was being set down in a chair in the choir room.
Mhm.
It turned out that person was only 5'7" and just a German woman. Uh, and that was the choir director of my mom's church.
Yeah.
And it was a sit down, shut up, this is what you're doing.
Oh, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and I was like, wait, what? What's going on here? It turned out, so at the time I was in high school, I was doing theater. And when you do theater in high school and you're a boy, they're like, oh, guess what? You're in choir now also.
Mhm.
I was drafted in like my senior year of school. I was like, why is choir on my you're gonna see a pattern here in my behavior. Uh I was like, I went to the teacher, I was like, why is choir on my schedule? And she goes, oh, you'll be fine. Just go sit next to Tim and do what he does. And so I did. Uh and I kept it a secret from my mom. And my mom was like deep into the choir. She came from a family of 9 people, 7 children. Every single child can play multiple instruments.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my mom can play 13 different instruments. I think it was 13 was the number. It was like piano, guitar, banjo, ukulele, like just this ridiculous plethora of instruments. They were like the Partridge Family. It was crazy.
That's amazing.
I just aged us with that reference. But so any kids listening are like, Partridge Family, what?
They'll go
Uh
Google it.
yeah. Google it. You'll
Just
be
Google it.
pleased, actually.
Yeah.
Anyone listening to this, if you've never heard of the Partridge Family, I recommend it. It is actually like a good show, a good quality show. It's a lot of fun. But
Agree.
so I was intimidated by it because when I was a little kid, when I was like 3, 4, before I stopped going to church, I used to stand up on the pew and put my hand over my mom's mouth and tell her to stop singing. That was me,
Yeah.
right? And my mom, like, in the middle of church, tried to hold back laughter and get me to stop doing it. Um, and then next thing you know, so I remember very clearly, at the time I was driving a 1972 Oldsmobile Cutlass. It was blue with a black top.
I love your
And
memory, dude. It's just on point.
thank you. I have a emotion based and visual based memory. I don't remember names and dates very well.
Me either.
I don't remember numbers. That's why you'll hear me say like I was like 3 or 4 maybe.
Yeah,
But I remember imagery and I remember feeling.
same.
Um, but uh, I was about to leave for school, but it was after school, right? I came home from school, then I got ready, and then I was about to leave.
Yeah.
And my mom's like, "Where are you going?" As a mom would, right? Here, let me give you the full picture though. My mom's only 4'8". Okay, so imagine like a hobbit,
Uh
just like cheerfully, mischievously, like, "What you doing?"
huh. I'm picturing it.
Yeah, and with her 1970s Aquanet hairstyle.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and I mean, I'm not that old. My mom started that hairstyle in the 80s. We're into the 90s, 2000s at this point. This
Yeah.
is would be actually 2003,
Okay.
2003 at this point. And my mom, I was like, I hesitated, right, as any 17-year-old would at this point.
Yeah.
And my mom goes, cross country ended. Swim hasn't started yet. Track hasn't started yet. You're not in any theater productions right now. And she's like listing all of the activities I did in high school
Uh huh.
because I was like super active. I
Yeah.
was always after school. Every single season I had something going on. There was never a time where I like didn't have some kind of extracurricular going on.
Yeah.
My mom just lists them all. And it turned out that was our first choir recital. And as I mentioned, I kept it a secret from my mom. And she goes, "Why don't I go with you?" Shit. Uh, so my mom got to see my first choir recital. And then the following weekend is when that German woman lifted me 18 feet in the air and set me down in a chair and said, "This is what you're doing now." And so through that, they had me do a Easter cantata. I had to
Mhm.
do a solo in an Easter cantata.
Yeah.
The accompanist's daughter had just come back from school, and she was like, "Hey, can I have him?" And my mom was like, "What? Free voice lessons?" "Why, yes, because that's what she did for a living.
Yeah.
She taught singing, and I became her first student ever. And so she taught me opera. The first piece I sang opera wise is called Lasciatemi morire. It is about the death of Christ, and I sang that at an Easter cantata. And I will never. This is a core moment in my life, I would say,
Mhm.
because the day you have grown men come up to you after a performance and they have a tear in their eye, in some cases more than one tear,
Mhm.
that was such a big, powerful moment. I made an entire chapel of adults cry.
Wow.
And I didn't know I was capable of that. At the time I was I just 17, 18, in that age range. I had never even comprehended anything like that. And I remember telling people that I'm it's not me doing it. I'm just singing.
Yeah.
Cuz I still don't know how to read music still to this day.
Yeah.
And I've been in 2 choirs since then. Like it's I I I don't know what happened that day. I have almost no memory of the singing itself.
Oh wow. I
Uh
hope someone recorded it.
no. No.
Aw.
It's no, all I have is the memory of it because at the time, this was like 2003, 2004. Like people didn't record everything.
Yeah, true.
You know, we hadn't hit that era of people yet. My junior year in high school, no one had cell phones. My senior year of high school, 50% of us had cell phones.
Yeah.
It was that fast. And they were all that Nokia brick, and it wasn't worth it to take a picture and
Yeah. True.
you know, so we hadn't hit that era yet of record all of the things. Honestly, I don't think I could stand watching it even if it got recorded.
I
I
think I would
think
want to hear it. Like, I want to hear you sing now because I'm just intrigued.
where was I going with that? Where was
I have no idea.
yeah, I forgot where we were going. You were
Oh,
asking me a question and I
okay.
forgot.
So,
But it's okay. We can just carry on. But why I defected from the church.
yeah.
Yeah. So, and I hate using the word defected. It sounds like such an aggressive term, defected. But because that's not really what happened, but I can't think of a better word for it. So, there were some great experiences in the church, but because I was Mormon adjacent. I never felt like I was actually part of the church.
Yeah.
The youth of the church, most of them had grown up in the church. So for instance, I had this girl who was constantly flirty with me and fun and for most of us men, if any girl is nice to us, we're like, huh, she must like me, right? Because that's just not how life works. Women
Yeah.
are not nice to men unless they like them, right?
Yeah.
At least the male experience. That's what the male experience feels like. Is that everyone hates you until that one woman likes you.
Yeah.
And so it turned out she was just being friendly and helping me get pulled into the church. And that's actually what she does. She starts to date a guy, pulls him into the church, and then breaks up with him. And then dates the guy.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I felt like
That's
but
a
to her it was
Jezebel.
this like heroic thing that she's doing.
Yeah. That's like a
For
Jezebel,
her,
though.
well, because it wasn't tentress. It wasn't sexual,
Oh, okay.
right? So I don't want to give the wrong idea. She was just super kind and friendly and open and welcoming.
Yeah.
And so she wasn't mischievous about it in any way, shape, or form. It's just the reality, the zoomed out big picture of it is, hey, you kind of baited me, you know.
Yeah.
But the youth, I just didn't get along with that. They were all basketball and football fans, and I didn't care about any of those things.
Yeah.
And none of them played Pokemon before, and I loved Pokemon, and I just felt like I didn't fit in. The first day I went to singles ward. Now, the Mormon Church is a very, 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 very organized church. Once you reach a certain age, you either go be a missionary when you're a boy, you
Mhm.
either go be a missionary or you join the singles ward. And the intent of the singles ward is to literally just help boys and girls meet and get married.
Yeah.
That's literally the point, which is I would say I think that kind of thing would be really helpful in today's culture.
Yeah.
uh, this world of everyone dichotomy, oh, men hate women, women hate men, everyone, all this negative
Yeah.
stuff. I think a community like that where it's just literally 200 people in one building, and I go there and every woman there was physically unhealthy. And the ones that weren't were just there for a couple Sundays before they go away to BYU. And that was a very negative experience because I was just blasted with all this positive attention from desperate women
Yeah.
all at once. And I was not into a single one of them. None of them knew who I was, and yet all of them were interested. And now, fast forward, I know the physical, actual explanation for why that was going on. But back then, it was overwhelming, and it was like, no, I will have none of this. And I basically, because I never fit in, it just didn't feel right. And then that experience in the singles ward, I just simply stopped going.
Yeah.
That's why. Yeah.
Understandable.
Which let me bring us back in here because where I am now in my life is if there's a new missionary in the area, some new missionaries,
Mhm.
never done it before, they need someone to practice on, they can come to me. I'm still open and willing and patient and understanding of the Mormon church and the people in it, but I have absolutely rejected my own participation. So, I had a missionary actually try to convert me once, and was like, "Dude, no, you don't understand. Okay, I'm here for you. If you want to practice on me, do it. But I am far more likely to convince you to leave the church than you are to convince me to come back to the church." That's that's and he thought it was a challenge, and I'm like, listen, dude, when you've got something, if you want me to come to a thing, if you got, go find an elderly lady who needs her lawn work, her yard work done, call me up. I'll go there with you guys. Let's do some yard work. Let's do a good thing. That's what you should be doing as a missionary, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You should be serving the community, helping people in need, finding like, spread your word through your actions,
Yes, yes, yes.
not necessarily your mouth.
Yep.
And then sure, yeah, let's go do some stuff. You want to practice your talks on me? Yeah, practice your talks on me. Just don't have any expectations. Just know that I'm a safe space. That's where I am today, as far as that goes. To fully encompass my spiritual thoughts, though,
Mhm.
I the most recent choir I was in was the oh, I guess I shouldn't say the name in a podcast.
No.
It was a pagan choir.
Okay.
So obviously very different.
Yes. Explain.
So we'll start with the role I played in the Mormon choir. I was a tenor, or as I like to put it, 10 or 12 notes off. And in the pagan choir, suddenly I'm a bass. As it happens, I do have a massive range, so I can handle both. I would assist the tenors sometimes when they needed support. But the pagan choir was more about supporting all spiritual beliefs that are not Judeo Christian in origin.
Yeah.
So, for example, they did a kind of celebration of the dead event
Like De
where
los
there
Mortis.
was, yeah, well, but not so much the Christian backgrounds of the Spanish holiday.
Yeah.
Um, there was an Anubis area, there was a Valkyrie area, there was a Druidic area, there was a witch area. That like this whole celebration had all of these different religions. One of the songs was literally listing all of these different deities of the dead,
Oh wow.
and like Hades and Anubis and all that. I forget what the Norse one was. The Norse have the Valkyries, right? They guide the dead to the to Valhalla, right?
Yeah.
But that was one of the coolest experiences I've ever had. I was in that choir for 3 years, and I learned so much about so many religions. Because after the Mormon Church, I'm gonna call it a tirade. At one point, I owned 13 different Bibles, had them
Whoa.
all open side by side, and I was comparing line by line, verse by verse, and seeing how like some Bibles had verses switched like in different order.
Yeah.
Some of them had verses omitted. I learned that several Psalms were written by William Shakespeare. Like
Oh.
there's so many like there's so much good in the Bible,
Yeah.
right? But it's clearly influenced by man still,
Yes.
right? It's not 100% the word of whatever deity might be passing down this knowledge to us,
Mm-hmm.
um, but because it has the mortal man influence. And that's the biggest thing I learned is that all of these Bibles had the same core, but you could tell the various influences. There was one big moment that made me dive. I left the church. Fast forward, I was dating a 22-year. No, I was 22. She was 20. She had a 5-year-old daughter. At the time, I was essentially the sole provider for that daughter because mom was a deadbeat, dad was a deadbeat. Both of them. I mean, they were 15 when she got pregnant, right?
Yeah.
So they were both deadbeat at that point. Dad wasn't really participating. I was the man in this life.
Yeah.
And at the time, I didn't have a car. I had a 4-mile walk home from work. And I was walking home and it started to rain. It was already dark out. And this is in Michigan, very foresty area. Some of the roads in that area are dirt roads. Like it was not a heavily populated area.
Yeah.
Kind of rural, but not, a rural region within city areas. And I get to this intersection 1 mile from the home that I was living in at the time with her. And I was so frustrated and angry. I don't even remember what I was angry about, right? As we rarely do. I'm so angry. And I'm in my bar uniform, which was all black at the time. I was a bartender server. And I remember thinking in my head, I wish that I could like get hit by a car right now and be put in the hospital. Just give me a month break from everything where someone takes care of me for once. And then the little man walking sign appeared. So it was time for me to start walking across the street. As I'm taking that first step, I said out loud in the rain, talking to myself like a perfectly sane, normal human being.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, but there's some stupid lesson that God wants me to learn, and I'm too stupid to figure it out. And at that moment, I got hit by a car.
Oh, wow.
It was a Jeep Wrangler. I remember it very clearly because I put my hand out, made perfect contact with the hood. The front of my thumb was on the front of it, my forefingers were on the top of it, and I jumped. And that Jeep drove underneath me. And then I landed in the middle of the street in the rain with a long black peacoat that like landed. It was like Batman. It was a Batman landing. And there was this odd moment. I looked up at the light. It said, yes, I had the go sign to cross. It said that just for a brief moment because then it started to blink, right? To tell you, okay, it's time to stop.
Yeah.
Or it's time to hurry up. The Jeep had pulled off into a dirt parking lot for a liquor store that was right there in the corner. And I walk up to the passenger side, and there was this, like, couldn't have been any older than like 7 or 8-year-old girl sitting in the passenger side with her jaw just to the floor. And the mom was the driver, and she was like, "Oh my God, are you okay? I'm so sorry. I didn't see you. Are you okay? Are you okay?" And the first thing out of my mouth was like, "Are you okay?" Like she was panicking. And for some reason, I just had this calm. Like maybe I was in shock.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out I wasn't injured. I didn't press charges. I didn't even get her information. I just told her I think I'm okay. I like started checking myself and essentially sent her on her way because she wanted to stay and but it was raining. It was like and she drove off. And I got home and the girl I was dating started panicking because she knows about my adrenaline disorder and she knows that like at any given moment I might have so much adrenaline in my body that I have no idea I've broken like 16 ribs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so she's like freaking out. I didn't break anything, and that moment was as if, and I'm gonna use God as the term for this because at the time that was the context. In retrospect, I've got more of a broad view of it, but that was God saying to me, "Shut the fuck up." And
It was funny that you said, "I wish I would be hit by a car just so someone could take care of me," and then he makes sure it happens and says, "Shut up. Now get up and go."
And not only did I get hit by a car, but I didn't get injured.
Yeah.
No one took care of me.
You got it, but you didn't.
It was like it was like God was saying, "I don't make me turn this car around."
Yeah.
Like, it was such an awakening, such an eye-popping moment that just it proved to me beyond a doubt that there is some semblance of spiritual entity that connects us, and whether we can comprehend it listening to 100% of our voices all at once, it is aware of 100% of our consciousnesses at once. It does not ignore a single one of us at any given time.
Nope.
Because there's no, and my justification for that is there's no reason why at that one moment it would decide to listen to me, right?
That was perfect timing.
It was just too perfect. This one of the big problems I have with religion. Every single religion says that their concept of God is so complex that no human can comprehend it, and yet every single religion is like, this is what God is.
Mm-hmm.
But your own Bible says you can't comprehend it, so how do you know? The idea of a human comprehending the concept of omniscience is beyond me.
Yeah.
Any human who comes up to me who thinks they understand what it means to be all-knowing, all-seeing, full of shit.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, like, I either view them as being dishonest, or I view them as being at a phase in life where they still do not see a bigger picture.
Yeah.
And so fast forward through all of that into the pagan choir, I've gone to these different events that celebrated different religions and have been introduced to so many different churches and spiritual beliefs that where I am now in life, spiritual wise, is understanding that I'm going to say 90% of churches, religions, spiritualities are true in some sense. I once studied a little bit of what is I always forget because I flip flop words in my head. Taoism, Tao, all that stuff. Buddhists. The Buddhists have what's called the Eightfold Path,
Mhm.
which, if you read it, it's essentially the Ten Commandments.
Yeah.
And when I was studying Buddhism, the one of the things struck me. Buddhists believe that any religion that follows anything similar to the Eightfold Path is a true religion. Well, guess what? Like 90% of religions follow something along the lines of the. Even Satanism has this like core of principles that, in many ways, like rephrased, right? So you can put them side by side and interpret things differently,
Yeah.
aligns with the Eightfold Path with a little bit of hedonism mixed in, right? Like it's jaw dropping when you start to step away. So when someone says they believe in God, I believe you. I encourage that.
Mhm.
I absolutely encourage that. I think everyone should believe in something. It's better to believe in something than to believe in nothing at all, because
Yes.
that something can be merely like your core might have morals, but you might use that belief system as a method of communicating the morals that you otherwise would not be able to communicate. So I'm a firm I absolutely believe God is out there. That was me answering like what brought you here today.
Yeah. That pretty much answered all 5 questions.
Oh, the deep stuff, the deep stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. The I mean, is there anything else on here that in the first section there's more I could even say on that stuff too?
Let's see. What have been some of the biggest challenges you faced in your career or life, and how did you
Or
overcome
life and
them?
career. Okay. That's actually a really good one because very recently I've made a lot of career shifts. Challenges in my life have been plentiful, right? Even as a child, I got my nose ripped off my face when I was 3 years old.
Oh, wow.
Right. I visited the ER 9 times between the age of 3 and 6. At one point, a social worker sat down with my parents, and my parents almost lost custody over me.
Oh, wow.
In retrospect, I have mixed feelings on this, but I think there might have been benefits if I was taken away from my family, because my dad was a very violent, angry man, and my mom was an enabler. I compared them to, at one point in my life, I think it was in my early 20s when I came up with this comparison. Um, you ever see the cartoon Buttons and Mindy on
Um,
X?
no.
So Buttons and Mindy. Mindy's a little girl, and Buttons is the dog that follows this little girl everywhere. And Mindy gets into trouble, and Buttons gets her out. And I make that comparison with my parents a little bit differently. Imagine a little girl with a big rabid dog.
Yeah.
And she has that dog on a leash, and that dog loves her unconditionally and does everything she says and protects her. All my mom had to do was let go of the leash, and my dad would attack whatever was in front of him.
Wow.
And more often than not, even though I have 2 brothers, one older, one younger, more often than not, I was the thing in front of him.
You were the middle child.
I was the middle child, and my brothers are both very introverted, antisocial. My little brother can barely communicate with other humans. My older brother wishes he was uploaded into a computer. In retrospect, my little brother's absolutely autistic, uh, um, borderline into high functioning
Mhm.
because he can use words. But my mom once said that she thinks he has Asperger's because he takes everything literally. He doesn't understand jokes. He doesn't
Yeah,
know.
my brother has that.
You can tell him to shut up,
He'll
and he'll
continue.
say, Okay, yeah, I'll shut up. I just want to say this.
Yeah, yeah.
And then he'll continue for another half hour.
Mm-hmm.
'Cause he just doesn't get it. But I was social. I was a communicator. I was out in the house being part of the family while my brothers were hiding. And it never clicked that I wouldn't be getting beaten if I just hid in my room like my brothers. So my
Mm-hmm.
brothers saw me as an idiot.
Yeah,
Like, why don't you just hide? You know,
yeah,
it never even occurred to me because what I was being told at the time is that this is what all families are like. That all families have problems.
yeah.
All parents beat their kids.
I've heard that too.
Right? That's what my parents were telling me is that this is what it's like to be a child in a home.
Mm-hmm.
And so it never occurred to me that I was being abused in any way, shape, or form. And so in retrospect, with the going to the hospital and them getting the social worker and possibly losing custody over me, uh, they didn't. And I almost kind of wish they did, but something tells me that the foster system
Yeah,
in Detroit isn't great.
yeah.
I
I
don't
think
know.
you'd been
I've
worse
never
off.
experienced it, but I think maybe it's not that great. At the
No.
time, in the early or this was 80s. At the time, I was born in 1984, so I would be at 3 years old. I was yeah, that would be 1987, so 1987, 88 in that range. I venture to believe the Detroit foster care system is an absolute mess at that point.
Yeah,
Um, so maybe it would have been better, maybe it wouldn't. Who knows?
yeah.
But then when I hit age 18, I was engaged at the time and had what I call the 5 weeks of hell.
Explain.
In 5 weeks, I got 5 traffic tickets, all written for 5 over.
Oh,
In that same 5 weeks, I found out my fiance was cheating on me. I got kicked out of my parents' house for the first time because, and we'll go into this story too. I think you'll find this interesting because of a bean that was placed underneath a stack of newspapers.
oh, okay.
And the probably one of the most detrimental, like in retrospect, is I found out I was failing a math course in college that 100% of students in my college were failing. There's nothing any of us could have done about it. It just happened that the new director of the mathematics department at the college is an idiot savant out of India who barely speaks a lick of English, and all of the exams he was writing were impossible for anyone, even his own staff members, to pass.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was getting screwed out of money in college. I was losing credits in college. Like it was 5 weeks of hell. And that was my first taste of you're on your own, kid. But so the reason why I got kicked out, let me get to that story because it's actually pretty wild. My mom asked me to clean the kitchen. She
Okay.
knew I was the most effective at it. I was really good at cleaning all the counters, sweeping the floor, mopping the floor, doing all that work. And I did all that work. I got home at 10. It was like 10:07 p.m. Curfew was 10, and it was 10:07. I can't get in the door. I forgot my key.
Oh no.
My dad's always in the living room, so I knock on the door. My dad comes up to the door, and he seemed agitated. One would be.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "Hey, I forgot my key." It's my parents' house has like a wooden door that had 8 panes of glass on it, so you could talk through it. And the panes were not like fogged or anything. You could see each other and you could talk through it. You could hear each other.
Yeah.
And so I said I forgot my key. And my dad says, "Who are you?" And I thought he was joking. And so I laughed and I said, "I'm your son." And he goes, "You don't look like any son of mine." And I'm again like thinking like, what is this joke that's going on? And I'm like, "I'm sorry, can you just let me in?" And he goes, "I don't know who you are," and shut the door on me.
Oh wow.
Dead serious. And I knocked a few more times, and my memory's a little foggy on this. My mom eventually came to the door and let me in. And as it happened, my mom, for some reason, believed that I did not sweep the floor when I cleaned the kitchen. I was like, but I totally did. I even like cleaned the furnace vents in the kitchen. Like they were clean, dusted. Why would I not sweep the floor but dust the furnace vents? Like of all the things you could skip, sweeping the floor seemed like the dumbest one to skip. And it turned out the reason she believed this was despite the fact that every inch of the floor was clean. In the kitchen, my parents have a shoe rack right next to a stack of newspapers.
Mhm.
And they would use the newspapers as like kindling to start fires. You know, they weren't about to throw away newspaper.
Yeah.
Right? And my mom had placed a pinto bean underneath the stack of newspapers to test to see how effectively I clean.
Oh wow.
When I moved the stack of newspapers, I simply slid them across the floor so the bean never moved from under the newspapers,
Yeah.
and then slid them back. I did not pick them up. I slid them. And so my mother believed that I had lied about cleaning the kitchen. And so my dad, saying that I am not his son, kicked me out of the house.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a little extreme.
I would say so. Yeah, that was my first taste of homelessness. And at the same, I ended up staying with a friend with her family, and that was an eye-opening experience because, like, I heard them fight with their parents a couple times. I was with them for like 3 weeks, but there was a type of love in that family that I had never witnessed before.
Yeah.
A type of forgiveness, a type of understanding that I had never seen before.
And it showed
And
you that not all families did what yours did.
it was just more evidence. I had other friends that I had seen them interact with their families and felt that inkling,
Yeah.
but it wasn't until I went to this house and was welcomed so wholeheartedly that it really started to make me realize I'm 18 at the time and still mentally thinking that all families are violent like that.
Yeah.
And I was at that cusp, is that the good word for it? Yeah, cusp. I was at that cusp moment of like overlapping thought patterns that are counterintuitive to each other and starting this like spark in my head of maybe life doesn't have to be this way, right?
Yeah.
And losing my fiance, finding out that the big quote gay black guy that was visiting her dorm room all the time in college was not in fact gay.
Oh,
And getting the speeding tickets and everything, I was so overwhelmed, and I found a cushion and ended up not having a breakdown. And I ended up boomerang. I got my own apartment, and that was a whole fiasco. I won't go into that. Can you tell I've got a lot of
you got good stories. I'm just sitting here listening.
Yeah, I've experienced quite a few things. I've learned a lot of lessons. And that's been like the core of what I try to do now is share what I've learned so that other people don't have to do it the hard way.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean, granted, this day and age, it's hard to find someone willing to listen and someone humble enough to say, hey, wait, maybe I should listen, you know? And
Yeah.
and I'm more referring to those that are under the age of 30.
Yeah.
It's as if there's an entire generation of me.
Yes.
And it's like, dude, that's not okay. That's not what life is about. That's part of why I'm so excited in my current career is because it really showed me that what I'm doing is right. And we'll get into that in a moment there. But that stuff is what really that was the beginning of it. And I continued with this overlapping fight conflict in my mind, and we're gonna get serious here for a moment, like
Go
real
ahead.
serious. So brace yourselves. Content warning: if you are highly sensitive to certain topics, you might want to brace yourself at least. I do encourage you to experience this moment, but if you must turn it off, at least temporarily, give me a few minutes. Living on my own, I started to do really bad things. I started to lash out. I picked up smoking at one point. I started to manipulate people around me. And I'm not making excuses. In retrospect, I see that version of me as someone who was just trying to get some semblance of control in a world that was just beating the shit out of him.
Yeah.
And I don't remember how old I was at the time. Early 20s, before I was that father figure for that little girl. I had a female friend who was coming over to my place all the time and was so kind to me. And it was like we were dating, but not. We were going out and doing things together, and we were having almost like we were best friends.
Yeah.
Um, it was stupid of us. We both should have known we were technically dating, but everyone's so cautious, right?
Yeah.
And I sexually assaulted her. I manipulated her and convinced her to participate in sexual things that she had never done before. And nothing mean,
Yeah.
nothing violent, nothing cruel, but she did not give full consent. And once she was in it, she couldn't escape. And she even tried to sometimes. She even like went and got a boyfriend because we technically weren't dating, and we were still doing things behind her boyfriend's back. And I remember one day, if you've never had this experience, I highly recommend like look in a mirror and look into your own eyes and tell you what you need to hear. And you might not know what you need to hear, but in that moment you'll know, right? And I said, and I think the exact quote is, and I'm going to omit my name from this quote, but I said, so and so, you're being a selfish asshole and you are hurting everyone around you. And that was it. That's all I said. At the time, I was obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yeah.
I was borderline sociopath. I was narcissistic and manipulative in ways that nowadays, like, I would have absolutely beat the hell out of that person.
Yeah.
Like, I'm non-violent, but there's certain people in this world that I think need to be punched in the throat.
Yes,
And
I agree.
I would have done that to myself back then. The me now, the turning 40-year-old me now, would have absolutely punched 20-year-old me in the throat for the behavior he was doing. The very next day, the obsessive compulsive disorder was almost gone.
Wow.
Suddenly, it was such an awakening.
So you did like some shadow work.
Oh yeah. That's what people call it nowadays.
I
right?
value,
Shadow work. Yeah.
highly value shadow work.
Confronting your dark self and doing your best to beat it out of you.
Yes.
Maybe not beat it out of you, maybe coax it,
Yes.
or at least learn why it exists and understand what good can come of it. I mentioned Buddhism earlier, the yin and the yang. There's good in all evil, there's evil in all good.
Mm-hmm.
If you become too good, you will miss the evil, harmful things you're doing. If you become too evil, you will have no comprehension of the good that you're actually creating by unifying people against you.
Yeah.
Like, there is positive in every negative and negative in every positive. That shadow work was the beginning of improving myself. And I still struggle. I'm still made a lot of mistakes, as we all do.
Yeah, I think that's like ongoing journey. It's not
Yeah.
just an overnight.
I would say I didn't really truly get past most of that garbage until my late 20s into 30. That it was like a full decade of grow the fuck up.
Yeah.
And I kept do you know what CPTSD is?
No.
Okay. So I spent a decade studying. So
I know what PTSD is, but not the first part.
yeah, CPTSD is complex post-traumatic stress disorder. Now begins my life in Colorado instead of Michigan, and I don't mind saying that on the cast.
Yeah.
In the state of Colorado, and I moved all over in Colorado. Colorado was an opportunity, and let me tell you, I got here 8 years prior to moving here. I met a girl on Facebook, and there was never anything romantic. And fast forward 7 years of knowing her, I jokingly invited her to a birthday party I was throwing for my buddy, and I get this DM from her, and she's like, "Hey, can I stay at your place?" I was like, "What are you talking about? You're in Colorado, I'm in Michigan." She's like, "Yeah, but I'm single now, and I am a strong, independent woman, and I'm gonna go to this party." It's like, all right, sure, yeah, you can stay at my place. When you know someone for 8 years, you immediately hit it off.
Yeah.
And so, of course, her and I became romantic instantly. It was such a connection because we knew so much about each other. She had just never been single until then. And she made that brave choice to travel out there with a complete stranger, technically, because we'd never met in person. And so we had a great time. Fast forward, I came out here to Colorado to visit her for a week with that same buddy that I threw the party for. And him and I took the train back, the California Zephyr, which, if you've never ridden it, absolutely horrible everywhere except the viewing car. Smooth ride. The viewing car was awesome. I'm sitting there with some rum. He's sitting there with some whiskey, just watching the world go by.
Sounds amazing.
And I'm going to try to describe this because you guys can't see. But I have a glass in my hand. He has a glass in his. The chairs are slightly angled in. The glass window goes from almost all the way to the floor, all the way up the wall, and the domed ceiling is half glass. So this viewing car is amazing. You just watching the countryside between. There's a train that travels from California all the way to Chicago, and that train going through Colorado. We got on at Colorado, so we're heading Colorado to Chicago. The countryside in between. I know there's better countryside in the U.S., but it was still gorgeous.
Mm-hmm.
We're quiet. We're a couple grumpy old men at this point, right? We're young, 28, 29-year-old. We're kind of this grumpy old men, quiet, sitting on the porch watching the world go by kind of guys. And he takes a sip of his whiskey. He goes, "Hey, and he takes a sip. And there's a pause. Do you want to move there?" We had been silent for at least 5 minutes. And that's the first thing out of his mouth. And I was silent for what seemed like another 5 minutes, thinking. It was probably only like 30 seconds, but you know how those moments are. And I take a sip and I go, "Okay."
You thought about it real long and hard. Okay.
And that was, and so we spent a month planning. I did all the planning. He was the financial backer. I planned everything. and we moved out to Colorado. I saw it as an opportunity to finally, an apple doesn't fall too far from the tree unless you pick it up and throw it as hard as you can. That was me throwing it as hard as I wanted to become the man I wanted to be,
Mm-hmm.
not the monster my parents created.
Mm-hmm. I feel that.
And I use that word with every semblance of meaning. I became a monster. I was no longer human. I was destroying everything. And just like Mary Shelley would describe, a product of its environment, just trying to find its way. The real monster was my parents, right?
Yeah.
The ones who created. For those of you listening who don't get the reference, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein.
An amazing movie. You should go see it.
Movie and book.
Yes.
The book is solid writing. That woman is brilliant. Arguably the first sci-fi book of all. Truly, there's not a lot of sci-fi in the book, just the sci-fi concept. So that's why it's arguably, because she doesn't actually describe much of how it's done. It's like lightning, okay.
Yeah.
Suddenly sci-fi, but brilliant author. And that is a story I really take to heart nowadays.
I just watched that movie probably last year.
Yeah,
It's really good.
Have you seen the far superior version starring Gene Wilder?
The new version?
No, this is not a new version, and it's in black and white.
No, I haven't saw that one.
It's called Young Frankenstein.
Oh, okay. I'll have to look for
It's
that.
written and directed by Mel Brooks. It is brilliant, absolute genius, work of art. One of my favorite movies of all time. Mel Brooks, Young Frankenstein. Amazing movie. Yes, yeah. When you're gonna love it. You're gonna absolutely love it. But so this was my opportunity to be me, to become me, not just be me, become me.
Yeah.
So I started studying meditation. I took the religious studies I had done previously that were mostly Judeo-Christian and a little bit into Buddhism and is it Taoism? I always mix some of those words up.
I do too. That's why I don't even attempt to say them.
Right, and learning about the Eightfold Path, the expanded. Have you seen the expanded Yin Yang? Do you know the Yin Yang actually has symbols around it?
No.
Yeah, it's there's all sorts of cool stuff. But learned about that stuff in Michigan. When I moved to Colorado, Native American, all sorts of different. Why can't I think right now? Hindu
Mhm.
and Muslim practices. I started to learn more about these churches, and I started going to this building where that's what they did is meditation. That's all they did. I met an Oneida Native American, and he walked me through some Native American practices. They do breathing exercises that respect north, south, east, west, and all sorts of different techniques. And that was the first time I saw what is colloquially, maybe personally, referred to as the Golden River.
Mhm.
Have you heard of this concept?
No. Explain.
So the Golden River is a river in the sky of billions of golden, sparkly, I'm going to call them stars. And that river has a stream that ties to the back of your neck. And I got to a point in meditation, I have experienced an out-of-body experience, not by more than a couple feet, but it was so weird because it felt like my arms were elongating and my lap became like a foot further away, 2 feet further away, 3 feet further. It was like 10 feet away. But my hands, I could still see where my hands were. So it was like my arms were stretched that full. And mind you, let me clarify. I'm in Colorado. I do not do drugs of any kind. No weed, no caffeine, no nicotine. Occasionally some alcohol, but even then, 1 or 2 drinks at best. I was not under the influence of any drugs, hallucinogenics, anything. Not even painkillers or antihistamines. None of that was my body is very, I'm going to use the word pure. Nothing's pure, but I'm going to use the word pure in this instance. So I know for a fact I was of conscious, stable mind when I experienced this. I absolutely experienced an out-of-body experience. And I witnessed the Golden River, of which I would now, in retrospect, say that Golden River is actually, I think they're called synapses, between the lobes of your brain. The lobes of your brain have constant little electrical charges popping between them. There's like a gap there. And I believe that through certain types of meditation, you do have, I forget what it's called, but there's a perceptive organ in your brain, part of your brain. I'm trying to remember what it's called. But it's like the one piece that goes into, it's like a little ball goes into your brainstem. And I believe the Golden River is the perception from that point of view. The river is seeing those connections between the lobes and witnessing how your brain is talking to itself. This was also an eye-opening experience. I started to consider the power we have over our own mind. And this is a good lesson for people, I think. And a lot of people will really, really struggle with this one. And I assure you with all my heart, might, and mind that what I'm saying is true. It's just incomprehensible until you experience it. The humans are not set in stone, and we live in a current generation where all of the doctors want you to think you are stuck the way you are and need to depend on medical science
Mm-hmm.
to be any bit of better.
Yes.
They want to put you on a pill, they want to put you on a diet. You need to have supplements. You need to do this specific exercise, that specific exercise. You need to do this amount of sleep, that amount of sleep. You want to like just constant bombardment of opinions that all tell you that you are not okay on your own. You must rely on everything else. You're stuck the way you are. It's absolutely a lie. And the fact that I am no longer obsessive compulsive, there isn't even a hint of obsessive compulsiveness aside from being really good at organizing things left in my person. I'm no longer experiencing what OCD really is when you cannot solve this bigger stress on you.
So you organize everything around you.
Your mind is naturally trying to fix every little thing it can.
I have it as well.
Right. So you understand, like,
Yes.
that's literally all that's happening.
Yeah.
Is there's that big weight on the back of your brain that you can't confront or are not ready to, not prepared to, not armed to, for whatever reason, confront. And so you reach out and try to fix every little thing.
Yes.
Wait, did I fix that? No, I gotta fix it again. Wait, did I fix that? No, I gotta fix it again. Wait,
Yeah.
did I fix that? No, I gotta fix it again. That's what obsessive compulsive disorder is. And it's gone. It is completely gone. We live in an era that tells people that if they have OCD, they're stuck and need a pill.
Yeah. You take this monthly, you'll be fine as long as you have this in your system. If you go off of it, you could kill yourself.
Yeah, no one is stuck there. Same with depression, anxiety, the narcissism I was experiencing,
You're
what's
listing
word
all
I
the
used?
things that I've experienced as well.
Yeah, no, not masochistic. Well, I used the word earlier. Now I'm forgetting. It's the word that means you are do not comprehend the emotions or well-being of others. It's like being inconsiderate. Oh, I used it earlier and I can't remember. But all of that is gone because I realized I could take control. Meditation taught me that I can take control. That leads me to probably the most important lesson I've started preaching literally this year, right? Because it's all been a journey. Beginning this next decade, 30 to 40, I started doing what I had to do. You know, I've always had this whisper in the back of my head, no, don't overdo it. Don't work too hard. Take care of yourself, right? Because that was the culture, self-care. And around the age of 30, I stopped. Like, I was still doing some self-care, but I started to have that a new wave of conflicting thoughts of no, just do it, just keep moving, mixed with no, take a break, self-care, right?
Yeah.
I often use the word to trudge. I love the word trudge. It's such a good word. To trudge is a method of walking that is as if you don't necessarily have somewhere to go, but you have to do it. You don't want to. You're reluctant to. Like a child might trudge to school.
That's my everyday life.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I love that word so much. And I started to trudge through life with this constant back and forth in my head of self-care. Do what you got to do, self-care, do what you got to do. Because I was still saying I was single, struggling to meet women, and the women I would meet were unhealthy in just ridiculous ways. The healthy women I did meet were so healthy that I looked that were I don't want to say so healthy. I'm going to say didn't experience the conflict of childhood to lead to needing to become healthy.
Yeah.
So what I was incomprehensible to them, and what I was overwhelming to them. And so we were at the same level as far as care, consideration, concern for others, and compassion, and just overall goodness and kindness, but we were not at the same level of growth, experience, wisdom, hard-earned, hard knocks.
Yeah.
And so I'm really struggling to find relationships. At this point, I'm 30 years old. The choices are divorcees, become a stepdad, fat women, or go gay. You know, like there's not the options
Not a
are
lot of
very
options.
different. They're very different. And I say most of that in jest. I don't mean to offend, but
Yeah.
I say most of that in jest. But I started working for Volkswagen in a just do what you gotta do. You don't have the college education on your belt because you dropped out. You don't have all of this amazing life experience supported by family and friends to be successful in life. Just do what you have to do to make as much money as possible. So I got into automotive sales. I did that for 5 years. This was now 4 years ago. Post COVID. Yeah, about 4. I think I have my timeline right. Right, 4 years. Yeah, around the time COVID was coming to an end, we had 2 suicides in 2 months at the dealership.
Wow.
A lot of people don't understand this. They don't comprehend this because the world does not teach you to care.
Mm-mm.
The world teaches you the exact opposite when it comes to car salesmen. I would reference the car salesman in the first Transformers movie, right? Sleazy, conniving, backpedaling kind of fellow.
Yeah.
That's the way the world views car salesmen. We're less trusted than lawyers.
Yeah.
Every customer that walks in the door hates you. Your manager hates you unless you're making money. And if you are making money, all of your coworkers hate you. And I don't mean dislike. I don't mean get into conflict with. I mean pure, unadulterated hate.
Wow. That's a lot of hate.
Your coworkers, if you're making money, they aren't. Your boss, if you're not making money, your boss isn't.
Mm-hmm.
And the customers, even if you're losing money, still think that they are being screwed, and so they try to take more.
Yeah.
That is the reality of car sales. It is no longer the 70s and 80s where every car has markup. The cars I was selling, $500 only in markup. These are brand new cars.
Yeah.
Only $500 markup. And it would vary a little bit, but you didn't have any 10K, 15K yelling at me because they just got a BMW and they got 10 grand off. Like, this ain't no BMW. It doesn't have that BMW name markup, which BMWs actually do have. They still have that traditional markup because they're luxury vehicles and they can get away with that. This is not a luxury brand. And I won't say what brand. I don't want to cause any conflict or whatnot.
Yeah.
So I got to a point where I was like, I can't do this anymore. What I'm doing is just granted, I at that point I believed in myself. I believed how strong I was to be able to handle the emotional stress. But I started asking myself, why the hell am I doing it intentionally? And so I gave up $100,000 a year job to go to a $45,000 a year job managing storage. And I did an amazing job. It was a pretty easy job, so it wasn't too difficult. But I took that store. We had 22 stores in our district. I took that store from bottom 3 to top 3 in 1 year.
Nice.
I was really good at it. My customers loved me.
How did your mindset change?
Oh, it was, I actually cared about what I was doing. It also had lots of downtime, so I was able to participate in a lot more, I'd be lurking on your Twitch.
Yeah.
I would be listening to your Twitch while walking the halls, because I have to walk my building every now and then. And
yeah.
And YouTube and podcasts and whatnot. I was able to participate in more things that I was very interested in. Started listening more to Jordan Peterson, who's something I've wanted to listen to for quite a long time.
Amazing man.
I truly, truly believe. And I don't understand why this is controversial in any way, shape, or form. But I truly believe that man is out to help the world in any way he can.
Yes, he is.
He's
Him and his
not there
daughter.
to hurt people.
Yeah.
His daughter, I don't know much about Michaela.
I've watched a few of hers, and I followed her lion diet for probably a month.
Yeah. I truly believe Jordan Peterson is trying to help the world.
I agree.
And even those who help can trip up and be misconstrued and misunderstood. So, but people need to start listening. He's not an enemy. He's not at all an enemy. But I got exposed to a lot of that stuff. And then the downfall to that job was I had to deal with a lot of homeless. And this was right when the fentanyl, right now, I don't know if you're familiar, but Colorado's going through a fentanyl crisis.
Yeah.
And
we have a bit of it here.
I do not doubt that. I remember watching on my cameras one of the tenants in the building doing that weird zombie lean over her.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Slowly drifting down. And then they catch themselves and then start to drift over again. And it's so creepy to watch.
Yeah.
And then I was at the train station because I lived right next to a train station, and my work was right next to a train station. So I parked my car and just took the train to work, which was brilliant. I love that
Yeah.
because you walk. I had to walk like a half a mile to the train station, so it was keeping me active and healthy.
Yeah.
I was getting 12K steps a day.
Nice. Good job.
So at the train station, I witnessed a fentanyl death.
Wow.
His skin was gray and clammy. There was like condensation on it, and his buddy's like shaking him. And like people, there's like only like 4 or 5 of us there, 4 or 5 of us alive there at the train station.
Mhm.
And he's like, I just administered it just now. Like it wasn't like he's trying to plead with us. He's in denial phase. He's trying to plead with us that his friend is still alive. Friend in quotes, because I don't know if drug addicts can have friends. I don't know if they're capable of it. And I don't mean that to be mean. If any drug addicts, people who are struggling with alcoholism, if any of you are listening, I don't mean that to be mean. I mean that to be real.
Yeah.
If you are addicted to a substance, you should be. There's one thing in this world you should be addicted to, and that's helping other people, helping make the world a better place, the connections between you and other people. It is totally fine to be addicted to that.
Yeah.
That's how we progress as animals.
Yeah.
That's how every living mammal on the planet progresses, with the exception of maybe polar bears. You know? Mammals are community-based.
Yeah.
Primates, especially community-based, obsessed with each other, grooming each other, helping each other, lifting each other up, keeping each other in check.
Yeah.
Right? Punishing each other when they need to be punished, accepting each other, forgiving each other. Almost every primate species, gorillas, chimps, several species of monkeys. I've only studied a few, spider monkeys, howler monkeys, and a couple others. But there's so much about. I should just for context. I have put a great deal of study into evolutionary theory, developmental psychology, just in my path to being the best me I can be.
Yeah.
And so I learned a ton about. I was already passionate about animals, but I learned a ton about animal behavior, anthropology. I studied a lot of that, and so that's given me a lot of the background to support myself and support others and become the me I want to be.
Yeah.
But if you're gonna be addicted to anything, I do not believe alcoholics and drug addicts can be a friend. You can have friends, but I don't believe you can be a friend. And I think understanding and accepting that about yourself is a key to overcoming those addictions.
I agree.
And knowing that and not wanting that, wanting to be a good friend was what happened when I looked at myself in the mirror and said, "You're destroying lives."
Yeah.
And so I truly don't believe that you can have friends in that state of being. So this guy, drug addict's not a friend. This guy's dying at the
Yeah.
train station. I get on the train and leave, and it's like a 15-minute train ride, and it's 15 minutes of me just in my head, and because that's a weird experience. I'd seen
Yeah.
dead bodies before. I'm from Detroit Metro, I should say, but I've seen dead bodies before. But that one struck me.
Yeah.
And I started to think about what I'm doing with my life and how much I've progressed and the good things I've done since leaving such a toxic environment. And so I go back, there's another a week of work, and it was a week and some, because it was another Monday. I often have to coax homeless people off the property, and I say coax because I'm not mean about it. I'll walk up to him and I'll literally like in this tone, I'll be like, "Hey guy, listen, I'm not about to be a dick about it, but you can't be here. You can have a couple minutes, clean up your stuff. I'm not going to call anybody, but I do need you to leave." And most homeless people react positively to that because I'm not aggressive, I'm understanding. I don't want to make your life harder. I just can't have you here, you know? And I think they get that vibe. And there's this dude in the back alley, and I tell him, I'm like, "Hey, I know this is kind of a nice shady spot. You can't be sitting here eating your ice cream." And he sets his ice cream down aggressively and stands up. He's like, "It's people like you that fuck everyone else. You're trying to fucking take all my money." And like, whoa, dude. Like, where did this come from? He's like, "You work for the government." And I'm like, "Dude, where's all this coming from?" And he's pacing. And I have my moments where I am not very confident, but I'm standing pretty steadfast, arms crossed, feet planted. And I'm telling him, "Hey, guy, this is not the reaction we need right now. We're not doing this. I came at you with kindness and understanding. You don't need to come back at me with aggression." And I'm literally walking him through these things. And he's not listening to me at all. And he's pacing up to my face and then back to where his ice cream is. Up to my face and back. And it's like a 10, maybe 12-foot distance, right? He's pacing. Really aggressive, and every time he comes up to me, he gets a little closer, and he gets so close at one point that you could Velcro our beards. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, wow.
Like he's up in my face, right? And I'm still non-aggressive, holding my ground. And I start to see that bubble, the boiling in the pot of he's about to throw a fist. And I tell him, I'm like, dude, we're not doing this. We're not doing violence right now. And that struck him for a moment. You could see the pause in his mind.
Mhm.
And finally he came back up aggressive against me and shoved me. Okay. Just a shove.
Yeah.
People, just a shove. I'm so proud of myself for this moment. And I believe this is a moment I should be proud of too. I did not react with violence right then. I let that first shove slide. Stepped back, he shoved me. I was one step back, stayed steadfast, held my ground, just pacing back and forth. I'm like, dude, we're not doing this. This is not how we do things. We're not doing violence right now. You are not prepared for this. This is not what you want to do. Trust me. Now, he doesn't know about me, about the violence I endured as a child. He does not know the work I've put into improving myself. He's older than me, but at this point in my mind, I was wise enough to perceive him as 22-year-old me.
Yeah.
His brain, his mind is where 22-year-old Professor Lycan was in that mind. And so I'm literally, this is why I'm proud of myself. And this is very, you would probably relate to this as far as spiritual beliefs go. For some reason, I was viewing this situation with understanding and forgiveness.
Mm-hmm.
He was just a sad man lashing out for some semblance of control. So he goes to approach me again, starts, and it was split-second moments like these. Goes to shove me. I was prepared mentally, scooped an arm underneath both of his arms. So his arms went up in the air.
Mhm.
Scooped it around so his neck was in my elbow crease. Swept my right leg to his knees, bent him down backwards, curled my arm around so it was supporting his back, and just crouched down, sitting on my toes. His body is now folded in half, and he can't move. And I remember saying out loud, this is arrogant of me to do, but I said out loud, this didn't go the way you thought it would, did it? And he says, it never does!
Poor guy.
Right? Exactly. I was so proud that I was able to restrain him like that. Did not let his head. We were on pavement. I didn't want him to hit pavement and crack his skull open.
Yeah.
I
Didn't you
did
leave
not
with some
want to.
bruises though?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he did manage to twist and wriggle, and he bit my side. I had a bite marks.
Yeah, I saw those bite
underneath
marks.
my arm. Yeah. And he bit me on my head, and like after I had restrained him like that, he did get free, and I was able to restrain him again. And like it was such a tussle, and the whole time I'm like, you've got that urge to just knock him the fuck out.
Yeah.
But I don't want to cause harm. I don't want to make his life harder.
Yeah.
I know if he ends up in the hospital, it's just going to make things worse for him. It's going to be more woe is me, because that's where his mind is at. I
Yeah.
understand that feeling. I don't want to compile on top of it. And I know for a fact I did the right thing, because what followed after he stopped struggling and I let him go, what followed was the most uncanny experience I've ever had in my life. This man suddenly became like, I don't want to negatively portray this, because he humbled up. So it was a good thing. But it seemed like he became like, he had my Fitbit fell off my arm. Broke.
Yeah.
The strap broke, and he like cupped it in his hands and almost bowed as he's handing it back to me.
Wow.
This completely subservient, I'm sorry, the way you might see dogs react when two dogs get into a fight and one of them concedes loss.
Yeah.
That was the body language. I'd never ever seen anything in real life like that ever in my life.
Wow.
And so something hit me after that fentanyl death and then getting attacked by this drunk person. I was like, you know what? I've done so much good. I'm pleased with who I'm becoming, but I'm still not doing what I want to do.
And what was that?
I wanted to be a teacher my entire life. And it shows in my body language. It shows in the way I talk. It shows in the way I treat people. I've always wanted to instruct, to inform, to lift up, to help.
It's in your name.
Right. Well, it's in my, yeah. And when I first went to college, I was going double minor for English and language arts with the goal of becoming a elementary teacher. You know, I've been talking about becoming a teacher since 4th grade. And so I was like, okay, let's get my feet wet. I don't have a degree. I don't have a teaching license. let's substitute teach. Let's look at the requirements for substitute teaching. Okay. I get involved with a company that is like a gig economy for substitute teachers. And they're like, oh, yeah, we'll help you get your certifications. We'll help guide you. Let's do this. All the while, in the back of my head, I'm like, yeah, you guys are just desperate for help. Right. So I'm like, even though like I fully believe in my ability to do what I do, I still have that like imposter syndrome in the back of my head.
Yeah, we all do.
They're just desperate for help.
Yeah.
It's not me. They just are desperate. And so I start substitute teaching. I got a chance to substitute 5 times.
Yeah.
My first time, special education, level 1 students, special ed. They do not speak. They're nonverbal. Some of them are aggressive. Some of them know a little bit of sign language, but there's 7 students total in the classroom, and it was such an awesome experience. These kids are so frustrated, but you can tell they feel when you're a patient with them. They feel when you are kind. They feel when you're a good person. And let me tell you, did they love exploring my beard? Day 2 of substitute teaching, and basically I'm working my full-time job, and then every Wednesday I'm substitute teaching. Day 2 substitute teaching, same position. I'm offered a full-time job.
Nice.
I'm like, what the hell? Okay, let me think about this. My next week of substitute teaching was at a different school, same district. There was a special needs student who just needs some special attention, needs a teacher with him basically the whole day to help keep him from being disruptive. So that's what I did. Awesome experience, great kid.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I misspoke earlier. I said 5 times. I substituted 4 times. My 4th week was at the first school that I worked at. I accepted the full-time position, resigned from the substitute teaching, came in for my interview, and they're like, hey, yeah, the position is filled, but we have another position. If you don't mind, if it's okay, we can still do the interview. If you want to do this other position, we'd love to have you for this other position. Okay, you have my attention. They describe a 10-year-old boy who loves Pokemon, who has a rare neurodegenerative illness. There's only 4 people in the entire state of Colorado who suffer anything similar, and each one is slightly unique from the others. His brain does not fully comprehend the location of his extremities.
Explain that.
He can move his arm around, but he doesn't know where it is. So it comes off as like lots of shaking and tremors is what they called them, and I stopped him from calling them tremors. They're not tremors. It's just his body trying to find where it is.
Yeah.
And because the moment his hand's on a table, the tremors are gone. There's no tremor.
Yeah.
It's literally exactly what any human would do if you were in a dark room trying to feel your way with your hands.
Yeah.
That's what he does 100% of his life, but he can see.
Wow.
And so he's got a walker. He can't write anymore. And this is new. 2 years he's been like this. 2 years ago, he could run and play and do everything a normal little boy could do.
Wow.
And so he did a year of absolute hell, depression, sad, crying all the time, falling down all the time. And then he met me, and his mom loves me so much. She lets me know. She's got my personal number. She lets me know all the time. She's so grateful. She's constantly texting me, checking in, etc.
That's amazing.
And so my job is scribe and safety. That's my job. I write for him. I keep him safe.
That's amazing.
Instinctively, naturally, I overstep. No one tells me not to, so I continue overstepping. But mom's like, no, this is great. This is great. I am his tutor. I am caretaker. I am physical therapist. I am all of these things for this child. I am the Alfred to his Bruce Wayne at this point.
Wow.
And we both love Pokemon, so we talk Pokemon. He started playing Monster Hunter. I'm a big fan of Monster Hunter. I kind of convinced him to play Monster Hunter stories.
Nice.
And he loves it.
Nice.
Because he loves Pokemon so much. Seeing these other bigger monsters and all this different creative, awesome stuff. He loves it. His brain is just exploding with excitement for these things. I introduced him to Godzilla. His stepdad is a huge Godzilla fan, and he's never sat down and watched a Godzilla movie. And he sits down and watches Godzilla with his stepdad and comes back to school the next Monday. He's like, I saw Godzilla. And he's so excited. And everyone's telling me, all these teachers that have witnessed this child for the past 4 or 5 years, they're constantly telling me he's a completely different person than he was the previous year. That what I have done in his life is give him hope, is give him some stability. And this is where I'm going with this. And this is, if you learn nothing else from this stream, and I'll probably only take up another 10, maybe 15 minutes of your time.
Go ahead.
Serving children. And I don't mean that in some perverted sexual BS, right?
Yeah.
Well, you're serving. No, shut up, right? Anyone who's thinking that kind of stuff. Clean your mind.
Set in the corner. We'll be done in a moment.
Yeah. To serve others is
what all of us are meant to be doing.
Not to be served, but to serve.
Right. Not to be served, but to serve. And I have, since age 16, preached this without knowing it. I used to tell people there's nothing wrong with a man and a woman putting each other first.
Yeah.
And people are like, no. Because I grew up in this number one. Look out for number one. Look out for number one. Look out for number one. And I was like, yeah, but there's nothing wrong with making your partner your number one.
Mm-hmm.
Because if she is your number one and you are her number one, then you're both number two also. You're both number one and you're still both number two.
Yeah.
You get the benefit of taking care of another person while also getting the benefit of being taken care of. I've been preaching that since I was 16 years old, and people told me I was wrong and told me I was wrong and told me I was wrong. And now I know beyond a doubt, now that I've experienced it, gone through all of the and mind you, we've only scratched the surface. I omitted several stories. I had to hold myself back.
There'll be plenty more podcasts, don't worry.
I have experienced firsthand now that the biggest mistake I ever made was trying to serve myself when instinctively I needed to be serving others.
Yep.
Every bit of confidence I have now. I'm going to quote Danny Trejo. Weird segue there, right? I'm going to quote Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
Danny Trejo once said in an interview, while playing that silly little game where you have your own island and you have buildings and you talk to little animals and go do quests and catch fish and whatever. I forget what it's called. Became popular during COVID.
Yeah.
He's in this interview playing this game. He loves this game. Right. He says, everything good that has ever happened to me has happened as a direct result of helping someone else. Danny Trejo, for those of you who do not know, is a convict, or no longer convict, but he was in prison when he was discovered and became an actor. And he did free jobs. He helped others. And he continued to help others and help others and help others and help others. And now he is living a lavish, comfortable life. He's humble about it. He's honest about it. He's a good human being. And I'm going to repeat that quote. Everything good that has ever happened to me has happened as a direct result of helping someone else.
That's beautiful.
I started living that life by that quote right there, and being there for children, helping children, passing on my knowledge, my wisdom, my experience to children so that they don't have to suffer as I have suffered.
Yep.
That has, and I read this in your notes about a calling. I don't believe in that shit.
Really?
But if I did, I would say I found my calling. I found what I should have been doing the whole time. I found my destiny.
You found your
I hate
purpose.
that word. I hate the word destiny.
I like the word purpose.
Purpose, I can roll with purpose. I found where I belong, and I'm making less money than I've ever made, but I am happier. I'm fulfilled. I'm comfortable. I have enough food. I have clothes on my back. I have a roof over my head. I have a really nice computer. I have a library of video games. I can go hiking anytime. I have an awesome car that gets amazing mileage, and it could last me 400,000 miles because it's a big old cast iron engine, blah, 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 blah. I've never been happier in my entire life.
That's good to hear. So what are you currently working on, and what can we expect from you in the future?
So my student is going into 6th grade, meaning middle school.
Oh, wow. Do you go with him?
I wouldn't have if not for my own effort. I was given the option of staying at the school I was working at.
Mm-hmm.
But I would have to switch to another student, a little bit of an aggressive student. He had been through 5 paras in the 4 months that I had been there.
Oh.
And he's not necessarily violent, he's just difficult. And I am, especially in the education field, and this is absolutely sexist what I'm going to say, but it's okay. This is not a bad sexist thing to say. I am a structured, stable, stern, strong, but fun, masculine energy that the education system has none of.
I agree.
And so they wanted me to move me to the student because they felt that my energy, my vibe would align.
Yeah, maybe calm
They were
him
like,
down.
okay, We need you to move to this student right now, and then we can guarantee you a job next year because he's only in 4th grade.
Yeah.
Or 3rd grade, sorry. He's in 3rd grade. So I'd have guaranteed 2 more years of work. And I was like, well, what happens to my student? He said, well, he'll just have to wait to get a new para. Because my student he's not emotionally aggressive. He's not difficult in the classroom. He's just falling all over the place and crying and
But how will he
struggling.
do with a new person? Since
Right,
he's
and
so...
how will he do with a new person? Which,
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest. He gets along with it. He's kind of a follower.
Oh,
I've been
okay.
trying to coax him to be a little bit more like, this is what you want to do, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, then say, this is what I want to do. I've been trying to teach him to advocate for himself.
Yeah.
But he's been through a few paras as well. And I suddenly had that thing in my back of my head of like that single mom that has a new baby daddy every week.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I don't want to put him through that.
Yeah.
The right thing to do is to stay with him. He absolutely adores me. His mom adores me. So I took another risk. I let go of that 100K before. Then I let go of even more money to become a teacher. Took another risk and essentially quit my job 3 months before my job was over, knowing full well I don't have guaranteed job. Called up the mom, was like, hey, can you call us middle school, see if there's an opening? I called the middle school. I applied for a job in the middle school. Didn't hear from him for a month. Started getting back and forth in emails. Got a letter of recommendation from the principal at the current school. Like, I put in effort to make this happen. What is the future for me? Starting August, I'm going to be in middle school as his one-to-one special needs para professional.
Nice.
I will also be going back to school.
For?
They are paying for me to get my bachelor's. I haven't decided exactly what yet. It's probably going to be relevant to psychology and whatnot, because I've done the study. I just don't have the slip of paper that says, hey, you're smart. Yeah, the $10,000 sheet.
Yeah.
Or more in some cases. But I'm going back to school, working middle school, and coaching cross country at that middle school.
You're going to be a very busy man.
As a direct result, I have gone on a permanent hiatus from Twitch streaming. I'm still going to make an effort to be part of the community, play games with the community. I have an entire summer break right now.
Yay.
To do things. So you and we can play some games.
Yeah.
But that's it. That's me. That's what I expect for my future. And I expect to continue to learn. I expect to continue to grow. My goal is to continue to be the healthiest version of myself so that I can be a healthy, masculine presence, role model, influence on the future generations who, in my opinion, clearly need it.
Yes. Beautifully put.
Thank you.
I think we all become something that we actually needed.
Yeah. I said to another teacher the other day that my goal is simply to be for these students what my parents were not for me.
Yeah. I try to do the same thing for my kids. Treat them the way I wasn't treated.
It's hard not to overcompensate that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
you have everything you want.
Far. If your parents didn't care about you at all, suddenly you're a helicopter parent.
Yes.
If your parents were like super strict, no drugs, suddenly you're like a freedom. You
Yeah.
can your kids have drugs. Like,
Yeah.
it's super easy to just flip to the opposite. You got to be able to find that balance, and I think that's part of finding a good balance in your partner.
Yes.
You know, I don't have a lot of drug experience. I actually think I would prefer to have a partner who is retired from drug usage, so that when we have kids, she could be like, "Hey, dumbass,
Yeah.
don't do it."
I've been down this road.
Yeah, because I can't say that. I've never done it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, that was a very good episode there, Professor. You've got a lot of amazing stories, and thank you for joining me.
Yeah, I'm a storyteller. That's what I do.
That was amazing. I will get all your
Thanks.
links and put them below.
You can, as far as social media goes, I think I might start picking up my Instagram again. I was at a point where I was doing one post a day, testing some things, put some money into it to see. I was just testing to see how that social environment works.
Yeah.
You will catch me on X, attempting not to rip new buttholes.
Or get banned.
Or get banned. Yeah, I'm pretty civil.
I think you and Demon make like a daily thing to go on there and see who you can piss off.
Yeah. It's basically you can tell when I'm pooping. I'll put it to that way. But you can catch me on there. I think it's Professor_Lycan or Professor Lycan. I forget what it is. But I do my best just to spread truth, to encourage people to question themselves and to learn. I am pretty patient and understanding, but I can definitely knock some heads together if I have to.
Yeah, I think that's why we vibe.
Yep. And but that's all. That's the only place you can really find me now. If you would like to go into backlogs of old content, I do have a YouTube channel. that is now called Professor Lycan's Home for Misfits and Monsters. And I've been making content for 17 years, so there's videos on there from when
You
I was in my
should
early 20s.
make some videos for YouTube.
I mean,
All this
I
teaching.
used to do a vlog because at one point I had a long walk to work.
Yeah.
And it was like a half hour, and I would record, just have a conversation with my phone for a half hour and then post it. And it was the same sort of like thought-provoking stuff that I do now.
Yeah.
But a less mature version, I'm going to say less patient version, a
Yeah.
less understanding version, a less direct, more direct, more abrasive version. Now I'm a little bit softer. I'm still a little abrasive.
You have an
but
abrasive side.
yeah, I try my best now to be understanding and whatnot. So that's where you can find me.
Well, you are an amazing human, and I am so glad to have you in my community.
I would prefer the word interesting.
Interesting, amazing human.
I don't know if I'm amazing, but I'm definitely interesting. I would say that. That's for sure. I'm going to be a pretty cool old man.